Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with the ASIS strike.
You have done your work and put us to the wall. We are not the slaves.
I'm not a small boy. You should have given me the report.
I have not seen the report.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to Global Morning. We're in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, from where we are coming to you live. This is Global Television. I'm Wiag Mofwegbe. Always a delight to be here with you. It's Global Morning Thursday, and we'd like to share with you some of the big stories around our country and even beyond today. Some of them pretty sad, far from inspiring, but then they shape our lives ultimately, don't they? The incident in Ibadan, the explosion that rocked that great Asian city, has continued to agitate the minds of humanity, not just Nigerians, because Ibadan stands tall when it comes to black civilization, when it comes to several topical issues, or if you like, landmarks in our history as a people and as a nation. And it turns out one of the most ancient empires in the continent, or on the continent of Africa, happens to be Ibadan. But as of today, the conversation has changed drastically, given the explosion that hit that city just a matter of days ago. Now we're hearing that some residents are blaming illegal miners for that explosion, because what we're learning is that it was basically on account of landmines, IEDs that were with some illegal miners that explosion happened. Now let's backtrack a little and talk about the damage that happened in that city. We understand several persons had been killed, all right? So you have those who are missing, and houses, some report says up to 20 destroyed on account of it. It has even made governance and leadership on the part of Governor Seyi Makinde more protracted, much more challenging, given the fact that he now has to attend to this one as a humanitarian case. First of all, he has to attend to it on the level of politics as well, because there are those who are not going to use it, especially opposition elements in Oyo State, all right, as a basis to haul stones at the governor, in the manner of speaking, saying that if he had done the right thing, if he had checked, if he had done due diligence, you wouldn't have illegal miners in the state who are apparently here now in possession of IEDs, or basically explosives of whatever kind it is. While on the one hand, that has further raised concerns around the conversation that has to do with illegal mining, illegal, if you like, refining of even crude in this country. It goes back to the fact that we are often more reactive than we should be proactive as a people. And then in this instance case, maybe as a government as well, all of a sudden we're now hearing, even from the governor himself, that some of the names in the Corporate Affairs Commission certificates, that is the CAC certificates held by these miners, have foreign names. I'm sure the governor himself is shocked. I'm sure somebody had not done their job properly. Apparently, due diligence had not been done. Standard operating procedure had also not been followed. But the question is, as is always the case in Nigeria, will heads, in the matter of speaking, role? Will people be held accountable for this? Are we going to see people who are actually guilty, responsible for this menace brought to book in the eye of the law, or we're just going to have some political back and forth about it, sweep the rest under the carpet, and life goes on for Nigerians in general and for the people of the great city of Ibadan in particular? So it's a big conversation we need to have, and we're going to ensure we follow through with this story here. And then, of course, we're also understanding now that there's some sort of what some persons have referred to as landmark judgment, all right, by a court reversing, if you like, some of the fines that had been slammed on media outfits by the NBC, that is the National Broadcasting Commission. As a matter of fact, the court has ruled, this is the court that was presided over by Justice Ofili Ajimogobia, saying that the NBC, that is the National Broadcasting Commission, is not a court of law and as such has no powers to, if you like, introduce fines or go ahead to further slam fines on media outlets. He says, look, the NBC is at best an administrative and a regulatory agency of the government and should not now start playing the role of a court. That the NBC, in that judgment, has been playing the role of a court. But there have also been several concerns, in some cases very, very, very intense, as to how that if media outlets, whether conventional or, as we now have it, social, all right, that is digital, do not, get to be regulated if they don't have some organ of government bringing in checks and balances, they could fly off the handle, sort of, and then get to break the law and get to do that as a cycle again and again and again and throw society, especially our country, into chaos. So the question is, has the NBC been overstepping its bounds, all right, or is the court now trying to unduly, if you like, clip the wings of this very pivotal regulatory agency within the space of the fourth estate of the realm, which is the media? All right, these are very topical questions because time and again we've seen the NBC talk about fines, hits media houses with fines, even some of the best, some of the biggest of them. All right, but this is a new curve in this conversation about how media houses should be regulated. Some people are now saying that, look, the NBC will not sleep on it. They are going to go back to court and challenge this at an appeal level. But we wait to see how this all pans out because we're going to go into details of all this in the course of the show this morning. It is also a very, very, very apt reminder of how that nobody should be above the law. We've seen media houses that have knowingly or ignorantly gone unethical. We have seen media houses that have over time taken sides for political reasons. Media houses that have gone virtually partisan. All right. We've also seen the NBC, all right, becoming more like, for want of better words, like a hound dog. All right, they say he who must come to equity must come with clean hands. So has the NBC come with clean hands? These are questions in front of us as a people, all right? And have media houses positioned themselves, acted as responsible corporate entities or corporate citizens, all right? Everybody has got to take responsibility for the part that they've played or the part that they've got to play at this point, and more importantly, going forward. These are conversations we want to have this morning. They want to also go back to Edo State where there will be an election for the governorship in September. We understand that the race is becoming even tighter by the day. We have some big names now coming into the ring, all right? And then just yesterday, one of them formally declared his intention in the heartbeats of the nation. And we want to look at all of those and see who are the main contenders. How does 2024 differ in specific ways from 2020? And if you go back a little further, 2016, all right, what are the conversation changes for 2024? What has happened to the Hallelujah Boys, all right, the praise singers? What has happened to Godfatherism, all right? What has happened to the power of incumbency and one man, one vote mantra? We want to look at all of these one element at a time in the course of the show this morning. But they say, where I come from, that what is in your stomach controls what is in your head. So it's time to talk about food for a few minutes. Let's now bring you taste and texture.
When you're caught up with time and you still want to enjoy a homemade meal, plantain porridge is definitely what you need. Hello and welcome to another episode of Taste and Texture. I'm Fatimi Abu Umar. Plantain, which is otherwise known as cooking banana, is a common food in Western African countries, Cameroon and Ghana. Unripe plantain is regarded as green plantain by some and serves as a good source of vitamins, minerals, dietary fiber, and antioxidants. Unripe plantain porridge is a delicious one-pot plantain recipe, very easy to make and super tasty, and you can make it under half an hour. Let's get to the cooking, people. Firstly, the ingredients needed are 3 to 4 ripe plantain. You can substitute with ripe but firm plantain. 1/3 cup of palm oil, 1 smoked mackerel. Use any type of smoked fish. 10 pieces of shrimps, 2 cups of spinach. Substitute with any green vegetable of your choice. 1 handful basil, salt, seasoning. I 1 used no cube. 1 pointed red pepper, tatashi. 1 Scotch bonnet chili, used to preference. 1 medium-sized onion. Save half for later. And now the steps to cooking. Blend pointed pepper, Scotch bonnet, chili, onion, and little water till puree. Peel the plantain, slice into chunks, and set aside. Place a pan on medium heat. Add palm oil and heat for 2 to 3 minutes. Add the remaining half of the onion, chopped, and fry for 3 minutes. Do not let it burn. Then add the blended pepper into the hot oil and add about half cup of water and bring to boil for about 10 minutes. Add the chopped plantain, salt, seasoning, and cook for about 8 minutes. Add the smoked fish and cook for another 3 minutes. Add fresh prawns and gently stir the plantain. Cook for another 3 minutes, and fresh vegetables and cook for another 5. Stir to that at this point. Check for salt and seasoning and adjust to your taste. You can mash some of the plantains, leaving some chunks for texture. Did you say yummy and super tasty? Yeah, I said that too. Turn off the heat and serve your yummy plantain porridge immediately. See how easy that unripe plantain porridge recipe is? And now to the health benefits of unripe plantain. It helps to manage diabetes. The level of sugar available in an unripe plantain is very low when compared to the ripe plantain, which therefore makes it an ideal meal for diabetes. 2, it's good for pregnant women. Unripe plantain are very rich in calcium, vitamin C, vitamin B6, phosphorus, and magnesium. All this helps the unborn child by ensuring proper growth and development of baby while inside the stomach. Number 3, it helps cure stomach ulcers. One of the phytochemical properties contained in unripe plantain is leucocyanidin, which helps to heal stomach ulcers. Apart from this, it also helps in protecting the walls of the intestine. 4, it helps in weight loss. If you're thinking about losing weight, then you may need to try out constant eating of unripe plantain before hitting the gym or opting for surgery. Unripe plantain are loaded with high-resistant stomach content, which greatly helps in weight loss. 5, it helps to prevent constipation. Quite a number of people find it difficult to pass through feces due to piles, but with regular intake of unripe plantain, very rich fiber, it will help to prevent constipation and make the passing of stool simple and easy. 6, it helps in building of stronger bones and teeth. If you are intentional about making it stronger, then regular intake of unripe plantain may just be an answer to your problem. Unripe plantains are very rich in calcium, which helps to facilitate the building of stronger bones and teeth. 7, it is heart-friendly. Unripe plantain is heart-friendly due to its richness in potassium, which helps to prevent heart attack and hypertension by controlling the heart rate in our body. And that's all for now. See you same time next time for another mouth-watering, finger-licking healthy food I have for you. Bye.
Well, thank you, Fatima, for just getting to kick something into our taste bud this morning, and you've given us an idea what kind of thinking we should have around breakfast, lunch, and dinner for today. We look forward to seeing what you give us tomorrow, being Friday and the start of our weekend. All right, so Abuja is a big conversation at this point for one reason, basically. That is the fact that insecurity has become more concerning in the nation's capital in recent times, all right? It is one form of kidnapping after another. Recall that before this time, the conversation, as it has to do with insecurity in the Federal Capital Territory, was essentially about the so-called one-chance phenomenon. But today, it will appear events have overtaken that, whether for good or for However, the sad news is that there's some sort of intensity with regards to the criminality being perpetrated in the nation's capital, and that is kidnapping. We've seen kidnapping become an enterprise in this city, and it's embarrassing, it's worrisome how you see people, families, loved ones running helter-skelter, scratching their heads just to raise money for ransom. I remember some years ago, even the police would say, look, nobody's paying ransom. The government would say, we're not paying ransom. And in some cases where we knew, for example, that ransoms had been paid, the families had been advised, either by their lawyers or the police, to say, look, you don't own up to it, ransoms were not paid. But today, it is openly discussed. Not just that ransoms were paid, but even the specific amounts that were paid. In some cases, the modus for delivering this ransom, I mean, that's how embarrassing and troubling it has become for us in not just Abuja, but Nigeria. But let's stay with Abuja for a minute, right? I look at the case of the siblings, the sisters who had been kidnapped not too long ago, and the story of how one of them had to pay the ultimate price for it. It's worrisome. All right, you don't have any idea how much of trauma comes with that for their parents and for the other young girls who are still being held in captivity, watching how their own sister, their own blood had been murdered for no fault of hers at all. All right, but now the government says, look, all of these people will not go. The president himself has waded in. He has also said, look, we've got to nip this in the bud. We've got to get all of these miscreants, these criminals, and bring them to a book. FCT minister says, we will make Abuja hot for them. But the question is, are Nigerians buying any of this? Because we've seen cases like this one, sometimes maybe even worse, across states, and the governor comes out and says, we condemn these acts, these dastardly acts, in the strongest terms. All right, how much of help does that bring to those who have been impacted adversely on account of these developments? So what will the FCT be doing going forward, in particular, to deal with this menace? I mean, who would have thought that Abuja would be such a place where, I mean, criminals can just come and pick people from their homes, pick them in the course of commuting, take them to wherever they like, and then do all sorts with them, collect money, and then continue that cycle. All right, so we believe that the FCT minister is having his thinking cap on in this regard. We believe that those who form the security team, or if you like, in some cases, the intelligence team in this city, whether the army or the armed forces, the police, the NSCDC, and all other military outfits, all right, are putting in the work to ensure that this is dealt with as quickly as possible. It's embarrassing, apart from the lives we're losing, apart from the monies that are going into the wrong hands, the embarrassment that comes with it, the image problem that comes with it is untold. What are we not doing right? Are we doing, I mean, are we supposed to be doing that we're not doing? What are we not supposed to be doing that we're doing? There has to be some level of sincerity of purpose in all of these, because if a government cannot guarantee security of lives and property, that government, whether at the federal or sub-national level, has already inadvertently created a question mark over its own government. That's what it means. All right, let's talk about business for a minute. Kikelama Okere is standing by.
Hello and welcome to Business Report on Global Morning. The Tinkan Island Port Command of the Nigerian Customs Service reported a noteworthy surge in goods exports, reaching 489.2 billion naira in 2023, marking a substantial increase from the previous year. Area Comptroller Dera Nadi disclosed this during a news conference in Lagos, attributing the success to the efforts of the Enforcement and Anti-Smuggling Unit, which resulted in 96 detention and 47 seizures. Nadi detailed that the goods exported through Tinkan Island Port amounted to 623,694.7 metric tons, with a total free on-board value of 409.2 billion naira. In a FOB agreement, the cost of transporting goods to the port and loading them onto the ship Once loaded, the buyer assumes responsibility for all aspects: transportation, insurance, and unloading the goods. About 92% of the currency in circulation is outside the banking system as of November 2023. This surge is highlighted in the latest figure from the Central Bank of Nigeria, marking a notable rise from the 86% recorded in October 2022, just before the CBN Naira redesign policy took effect. The magnitude of this shift is further illustrated by the CIC, which soared by 21.37% in under 3 months, amid the intensifying cash crunch felt across the nation. Specifically, CBN data reveals a climbing to 3.3 trillion naira in CIC in November 2023, a significant jump from 2.76 trillion naira noted in September 2023, coinciding with Yemi Cardoso's assumption of office as the governor of CBN. Also, cash outside bank experienced a 27.80% increase, reaching 3.03 trillion naira in November 2023 from 2.4 trillion naira in September 2023. This surge in bank-held cash comes amid growing public concern over the sufficiency of currency in the banking system. In response, the CBN issued a statement in November 2023, reassuring citizens of adequate currency stock and advising against panic. The backdrop of this scenario includes widespread reports of cash scarcity at banks, ATM, points of sales, and bureau de change across major cities in Nigeria. This shortage has placed considerable strain on Nigerians' banks, which have struggled to meet customers' withdrawal demands, leading to various operational challenges. The Canadian government, in collaboration with Mennonite Economic Development Associates and Bauchi State Governor, has joined forces to back 294 small-scale businesses and institute 590 saving groups spanning 7 local government areas in Bauchi State. The collaboration bettered a 5-year initiative named Women Empowerment and Youth Entrepreneur, which received funding totaling $15 million from the Canadian government, with an additional $1.1 million contributed by MEDA and the Bauchi State government, amounting to over $60 million in total. This project is aimed to boost business performance and foster a favorable environment for businesses led by women and youth. It concluded recently after a 7-year duration. According to Lydia John Shehu, Director General of Sustainable Development GO, MEDA is a significant development partner, making impactful contribution to the socio-economic development of the state. Following the positive sentiment, the Nigerian Exchange Limited is currently witnessing in 2024 share of 3 quoted cement companies on the NGX recorded a combined gain of 9.89% after trading on January 17, 2024. The companies are Dangote Cement PLC, Bua Cement PLC, and Lafarge Africa PLC. This resulted in investors of the companies gaining about 1.043 trillion naira at the close of trading on January 16, 2024. The domestic bourse maintained the bull run as the benchmark index closes at 3.93% stronger to settle at 80,971.10 points. Sustained by interest in industrial heavyweights, namely DASEM, which got plus 9.84%, BUASEM plus 9.96%, alongside Zenith Bank plus 2.92%, drove the market's strong performance, offsetting sell-off in UCAP, which is minus 1.57%, Mansard, which got minus 1.39%, and Custodian minus 2.04%. As a result, the year-to-date return rose to 17.65%, while market capitalization gained 1.82 trillion naira to close at 48.14 trillion. The market sentiment for the segment, which comprises, has remained resilient in the face of the economic volatility. Kike Lomo Okeri, Global Television News.
Kike Lomo Okeri there, bringing us a roundup of business for you, just so you're guided as to where your money is going or should be heading. Thank you, Kike, for that reporting there. Just a while ago, I was talking about security concerns around the Federal Capital Territory, which is Abuja, and how that there's now much more work on the part of the FCT minister in particular and the federal government in general to ensure that it doesn't get any worse than it already is. However, we're not hearing that there's a massive deployment of police across the city, and we hope this really works, because it's interesting and very embarrassing, like I mentioned a while ago, how that this just continues to happen and gets worse, and it seems like everyone is helpless about it. I mean, this is not just some God-forsaken city. This we shouldn't tolerate. This is a new law for us, and the earlier we tell ourselves the truth and resort to deal with this, the better for us all. Now to other stories, we're now hearing that the portal, of course that's the online platform for the student loan initiative of the federal government, will open this to whether or not this is a step in the right direction for our education sector. But the president has said, look, we must invest wisely, we must invest very strategically in education, because that's one way we can drive growth and development as a nation. But some people have the fear that this will not achieve that goal. Instead, it will put education in the hands of profiteers. It will put education in the hands of business-oriented individuals. But who says we can't start out and see how it goes? I mean, is there a rule that says we can't continue to amend, and adjust as we make progress? All right, these are conversations we will continue to follow for you, not just on Global Morning, but across our programs here at Global Television. We're taking a quick break. When we return, it will be time for the Global AM News. Do stay with us, everyone.
Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to AM News on Global Television. We are live in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Anthony Momodu. President Bola Tinubu has condemned the recent spate of kidnappings and bandit attacks, describing the development as disturbing, ungodly, and sinister. He said this when he received a delegation of the Jama'atu Ansarud-Din, a highly respected Islamic movement, at the State House on Tuesday in Abuja. The president said that while security agencies are acting with dispatch to immediately address the current challenges, all required resources, policies, and plans would be rolled out for the massive education of Nigerian youths. The president also emphasized the need to promote updated knowledge through existing Islamic learning institutions for youth in northern Nigeria to speed up development in the region, Nigeria and Africa, urging Nigerians to embark on special prayers on proper education for the youth, stating that kidnapping and banditry are not the way of God, and there can be no development without peace. President Bola Tinubu on Tuesday met with service chiefs and other heads of security agencies at the State House, Abuja, over rising insecurity. This development follows recent security lapses in various regions of the country, particularly in the Federal Capital Territory, where kidnappers have perpetrated severe acts of brutality in the past few days. At the meeting, where the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetukun, and the heads of some other security outfits. While there has been no official briefing on the meeting yet, it is presumed that President Tinubu and the security chiefs will examine the recent security situation in different parts of the country and devise strategies to curb the increasing impunity of criminals, including kidnappers and bandits. The federal government has pledged to fulfill its agreement with organized labor. The Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Nkeruka Onyejocha, made this known during a courtesy visit to the office of the Trade Union Congress, TUC, on Wednesday in Abuja. Onyejocha said the visit to some of the major trade unions was to maintain open communication, foster labor relations aimed at preventing future strikes, and ensure a friendly working environment for workers. She said that the government appreciates the plight of the trade unions and is ready to partner, but the channels of communication must be kept open. She also said that President Bola Tinubu was focusing on making sure that the issue of a new national minimum wage was addressed. Onyejocha added that the federal government would ensure that the committee starts work. The sum of 5,128,180,623 naira was on Wednesday approved by the federal government for the funding of 185 successful research proposals under the Tertiary Education Trust Fund National Research Fund 2023 Grant Cycle. The approval, which was conveyed by the Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, followed the report of the TED Fund National Research Fund Screening and Monitoring Committee, which recommended the funding of 185 proposals, a rigorous screening exercise that commenced in March 2023 with the receipt of 4,287 concept notes from prospective applicants. According to a statement, a breakdown of the approval indicates that the sum of 3,784,635,923 naira was approved for the Science, Engineering, Technology, and Innovation thematic group, while 759,875,400 naira was approved for humanities and social science, while cross-cutting received 583,669,300 naira 63 kobo, with individual grants ranging between 8 million and over 46 million. The National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, in a bid to strengthen collaboration between government agencies for better service delivery, received the Minister Youth Development for possible partnership to enhance the skills and abilities in the younger generation for national growth. Fauzia Lukman tells us more.
In order to identify and discuss issues on nation building and concerns on youth with disabilities, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities received the Minister for Youth Development to partner for the initiative in reviving the youth centers for persons living with disabilities in the Federation. In attendance also is the Vice Chancellor, Nasarawa State University, KEFI, Professor Suleiman Bala Mohammed, who stated the ease of admission processes, free education and accommodations for persons with disabilities in accordance with the government policies.
Every person with disability who is admitted into Nasarawa State University will not pay school fees. Every person admitted will be given automatic accommodation. We have also ensured that all our physical structures, the buildings that we construct in the university, are also friendly to persons with disabilities.
The Executive Secretary, Dr. James Lalu, in his remarks, said the goal is to create a platform to enhance full implementation of policies and programs for equal rights, while requesting for the establishment of bilateral committee in the ministry.
Our goal remains that to create a platform that will enhance the full implementation of policies, support processes, and programs for the recognition and protection of the rights and dignity, accessibility, and equal participation of persons with disabilities in all sectors in Nigeria. Additionally, we understand that the ministry is planning a lot of empowerment and support programs for the youth in Nigeria. We want to passionately request for a 10% of all programs and projects you will be planning in your ministry for the disability community. I want to request for the establishment of a bilateral committee in the Ministry for Youth and the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, dedicated officers from your ministry and dedicated officers from our commission.
Speaking further on policies and inclusion, the Minister of Youth Development, Dr. Jamila Biu Ibrahim, reiterated on the significance of implementation of decision-making processes in programs and initiatives for youth with disabilities.
The 10% disabilities quota that was requested to be included in all of the ministry's activities, and I've assured the Commission's Executive Secretary that the 10% inclusion request will be granted. We have proposed some programs for persons living with disabilities across the 6 geopolitical zones, which include mentorship and an agency of the Ministry of Youth, which is a Center for Leadership Training. We also hope that we are able to bring more young people to learn more about the leadership that is required to actually address challenges of persons living with disabilities.
People living with disabilities are a significant part of the citizens of Nigeria. Therefore, the disability community have innovatively contributed in one way or the other positively in building the new Nigeria. Fauzia Lukman, TV News.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has interrogated the Accountant General of the Federation, Oluwatoyin Medin, over an alleged link to a 585.2 million naira fraud involving the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Dr. Ebeta Edu. The AGF was quizzed by EFCC interrogators at the Anti-Graft Agency's headquarters, Jabi, Abuja. Medin was grilled for over 6 hours and was released with no condition in the evening. She was queried over the payment of 585.2 million naira of government funds from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs into the private bank account of a government official. The AGF, in a statement, countered the claim by the suspended minister, while noting that allocations were released to self-accounting MDAs in line with the budget, and such MDAs were responsible for the implementation of their projects and payment for such projects. Governor Diko Rada of Katsina State has said youth across Nigeria should be developed through various forms of employment to drive the country's economy to prosperity. The governor stated this when he paid a courtesy visit to the Minister of Youth Development, Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, in her office in Abuja. Rada pointed out that the larger population of the country was dominated by the youth, and that every administration in the needed to focus on them. He revealed that it was part of the reason he visited the ministry to find out what programs they have for youth development in the country and see where the state government could key in, collaborate, synergize, and share knowledge and information to drive the development of youths together. Responding, the minister said the ministry was enthusiastic to partner with Katsina State and hoped to achieve sustainable programs where the agricultural chain is respected with a valuable ecosystem. Barely 24 hours after his inauguration for the second term in office, the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodimma, dissolved his cabinet. Uzodimma, who was overwhelmingly elected for the second tenure in November last year, sacked all commissioners and other political appointees with immediate effect. He is expected to constitute a new cabinet by submitting a new list of commissioner nominees to the State House of Assembly for screening and confirmation. Appointees affected by the dissolution included the Secretary to the State Government, Commissioners, Special Advisors, Senior Special Assistant, the Chief of Staff, and the Chief Press Secretary. The Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde on Wednesday said preliminary investigations by the security agencies revealed that the explosion that rocked the Bodija area of Ibadan, the state capital, on Tuesday was caused by explosive devices stored by illegal miners. No fewer than 10 persons were feared killed and 15 others hospitalized following the explosion that also affected a session of the governor's office secretariat, Oyo State House of Assembly, the residence of the former Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Chief Bola Ige, some buildings at Ologuneru, Apata, New Garage, Bashurum, Akobo, Sango, and Ileyele. Makinde, who visited the scene of the explosion Tuesday night, said though further investigations were still ongoing, anyone found culpable would be brought to book. In a related development, no fewer than 15 people have been removed from under the rubble during the ongoing rescue operations at the scene of Tuesday's explosion in the Bodija area of Ibadan. The branch secretary, Nigerian Red Cross Oyo State Branch, Olaleye Ojudo, in Ibadan on Wednesday, he noted that the operation was jointly carried out by various agencies, including the Red Cross, NEMA, SEMA, and security agencies. Ojo said the rescue operation commenced in the early hours of Wednesday. According to him, the officials have been attending to people and taking them to various hospitals, adding that hospitals have been complying with government directives to accept victims of the explosion and give them adequate treatment. The Commissioner of Police, Ekiti State Command, Dare Ogundare, has ordered investigation into the attack by hoodlums on Ekiti State University Teaching Hospital, Adoptic, and the forcible removal of a corpse of a dead patient. The police public relations officer, Sunday Abutu, said the CP met with the parties involved in the matter on Tuesday morning, adding that the police had started investigating some persons fingered in the attack on the hospital. The hoodlums, suspected to be members of a drivers' union, angered by the death of the patient, who was a father to one of them, had allegedly descended on doctors and other hospital workers, vandalized the accident and emergency unit, and forcibly took away the corpse. Some AKSUTH workers, including members of the Association of Resident Doctors, immediately embarked on strike, calling for their security and the arrest and prosecution of the culprits. A former Minister of Women's Affairs, Pauline Tallen, has apologized to the judiciary for describing the verdict of a court as a kangaroo judgment. According to Tallen, her remarks were misconstrued and quoted out of context. In the apology letter, the former minister said the comment was not a call for civil disobedience against judges and the NBA, stating that the statement was by and large misconstrued and quoted out of context, as it was not in any way or by any stretch of the imagination intended to malign or undermine the of the nation's judiciary. Neither was it a call for civil disobedience against the bar and the bench. Some unknown gunmen suspected to be bandits attacked and killed 2 immigration officers at the Kangiwa border on the Arawa local government area of Kebbi State. In a statement by the Kebbi State Command Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Immigration Service, DSI Abdullahi Isa, said the suspected bandits in a group launched an attack on the officers at the entry point of Gari Gaba, 12 kilometers away from Kangiwa town, which resulted in the death of the 2 officers on duty at the border. He further stated that the unprovoked attack and killing of the officers would not distract them from their official duties of effectively manning the borders to ward off criminal elements. The Abia State government says it has recorded 3 suspected cases of measles in Arochukwu and Omunochi local government areas of the state. The Commissioner of Health, Dr. Ngozi Okoronkwo, disclosed while briefing newsmen in Umuahia on the outcome of the State Executive Council meeting. She said frantic efforts were being made to contain the outbreak and prevent further spread of the disease. The commissioner attributed the infection to the dry weather conditions being experienced in the state and advised the more vulnerable children to be vaccinated against such diseases. Kanu called on residents of the state to be vigilant and healthy lifestyle to avoid being infected with the disease. He said that 5,000 residents were targeted and that 200 people would benefit from free surgeries during the program. You're watching AM News live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. We're on StarTimes channel 276. Kindly follow us on all social media platforms using at Global TV NG and other handles now showing on your screen. When AM News returns, Customs sets a 1.130 trillion naira revenue target for Tinkan Command. The news continues shortly with details of these and more stories right after this break. Please stay with us. On Wednesday, reserved a judgment in an appeal by the People's Democratic Party and its candidate, Saidu Umar, against the election of the Sokoto State Governor, Ahmad Aliyu. The 5-member panel led by Justice Kudirat Kekere Ekun adjourned the matter for judgment after listening to the argument from the parties involved in the appeal. The Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja had Aliyu's election. Umar, and the PDP had alleged that Aliyu and his deputy Idris Gube were not eligible to contest the governorship poll. They also alleged that the election was not only marred by irregularities, but also not concluded in substantial compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022. The Court of Appeal, however, dismissed the appeal for lacking in merit. Non-satisfied, Omar and the PDP approached the Apex Court. And that's how we call it a wrap on the AM News. I am Anthony Momojo. Good morning.
We appreciate you staying with us, everyone. It is still Global Morning here on Global Television. We're coming to you from Abuja, the nation's capital. Incidentally, I'm joined by my colleague now, Queen Agaba. So I'll start flying solo on the show this morning. Queen, it's good to see you.
Good morning, Mr. E. It's good to see you too.
Great.
I missed you yesterday on the program.
Yeah, I can imagine, but then the show must go on, as we say.
The show must go on.
That's right. So a lot to be talked about on the show, no doubt about that. But we want to start from the home front, which has to do with insecurity in the FCT. Some people say until something affects you or something comes close to home, most of us don't understand how it feels for those who are directly impacted. You know, the case of those sisters who were kidnapped, one of them now having had to pay the ultimate price, all right, is still very fresh in the memories of Nigerians, especially when you look at the fact that it has assumed these twists where family members, loved ones, those who care about them, are now running, you know, from pillar to post, trying to raise ransom money and all that. It's not as if we have not seen insecurity of this proportion across this country, from one city to another, from one community to another. But what really concerns people right now is that element of the fact that has to do with the nation's capital.
Yes, it's really sad that it has to be the nation. I mean, this is the nation's capital, for crying out loud. This is the FCT.
Right.
And you and I know how this kidnapping has been on the rampage. You know, cases of kidnapping, as far as even, you know, families. Now, this is where it gets really, really, really appalling and really sad, that a whole family, you know, 5 daughters, 5 girls from one family were kidnapped, and then we learned that a few days back, you know, one of the sisters were killed. It's sad. And then we hear we're not getting any response as to what, I don't know if that is for the security agencies. I don't know how, but you know, this is time and time again when there are cases of kidnap, we hear, we always hear, and we're always assured that, you know, these kidnappers will be brought to book, and that the security agencies and relevant agencies are working towards, you know, ensuring that these people are released. But this is how we just hear this statement, and then we don't get feedback. We sometimes don't even know. Take for instance the Chibok girls that were kidnapped as far back as 2014 it was. It's sad. And then we just hear maybe after 4 years or 3 years or a few years, one of the girls you know, released, or it's just sad. And owing to the fact the FCT, how bad can it be? And then we hear obviously a few days ago, the First Lady tweeted where she said that we can only pray for the release of the girls. In as much as I think that I must commend her for, you know, at least coming out to say, obviously we can only pray because we're all human. But that kind of sparked reactions from people, you know, for the First Lady to come out and say that we pray that, you know, the sisters are
released unhurt.
It just tells you our level of, I'm not going to say hopelessness, but it just shows that, which is not a bad statement to make that we pray that the sisters are released, but it just shows, for me, I feel like, we're at that state where we now have to start praying. Prayer is not a bad thing, but we have to start praying. When we have relevant agencies, we need to know what are they doing, what are the measures that are being put in place, so that this doesn't become a case of just a repeated case like other cases that we've had where these people are kidnapped, government officials. I mean, a few days ago, one of the ministers said that his friend is offering to, you know, paid a ransom of 50 million naira. Now, I don't want to be in a position where I know that it's family. If someone close to you is kidnapped, someone really close to you is kidnapped, you know, you'll be, as a family member, the pressure will be on you, you know, to start running here and there, looking for money and all that. But I want to pose this question now. Is it right for, should that be the way, you know, for government to now begin to mediate with kidnappers for, you know, for the release of kidnapped?
You're concerned, apparently, Queen, about the fact that it has become commercialized, right?
And then because you know, we always have cases where government and these kidnappers come to a middle ground, they mediate, and then they pay this ransom. That is why I feel like the cases are increasing on a daily. It's a concern. It's sad, it's appalling, owing to the fact that this is the FCT. I mean, it's sad that it's happening anywhere in Nigeria, but the Federal Capital Territory, and what this means for us is that we're going to lose, obviously, a lot of investors, a lot of multinational companies are going to be leaving us because of insecurity.
It's sad, quite frankly. Just at the top of the show this morning, I was referencing this case, this instance, and then I talked about how that it's an image breaker for Nigeria, right? Because the kind of story it tells about who we are, all right, it's far from palatable, because it's going to impact one way or another the decisions that will be made by prospective investors. Let's not even talk about those who are already here as investors, what kind of signals it could send to them. Right now, we're already dealing with a situation where we have multinationals living in Nigeria. We have those in the real sector, manufacturing sector, also living in the country, those in oil and gas, and so on and so forth, living in the country. And then you have this kind of thing, because there are people just to want to ensure that their money is safe before they come to put a kobo there, because they say it puts your money where your mouth is, all right? But nobody wants their mouth to be hurt in the manner of speaking. I recall very vividly, I was still a very young boy. I'd seen a news report, right, where former CBN governor, now Anambra State Governor, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, had gone to New York, I can't forget, and he was reaching out to a room full of Nigerian investors who had been established in the U.S. then. I mean, many of them playing pivotal roles in the U.S. economy. And he was telling them, you've got to come back home and invest. This was sometime around 2004, 2005, when issues around consolidation in the banking sector, came up. 2005, thereabout, I guess. And then there was this hula baloo around mergers and acquisitions and so on and so forth. But the point is, he was telling them, you are first Nigerians before you are anything else. So, just be fair to us. Come do some investment back in Nigeria. One of the questions one of those gentlemen raised was, we don't have a problem coming to invest in our home, because he said when most of us here die, we're coming back home to be buried. And we have also, we have presence back at home, whatever that means. However, we are here today in the U.S. because we are sure, even if we died now, our investments are safe. All right, that guarantee is not even debatable. However, nobody, not even you as the CBN governor, as he then was, or the president who was Olusegun Obasanjo at the time, can give us that outright, that absolute guarantee that our investments are safe. I don't know, maybe that kicked some challenge into the former CBN governor. We've got to do some, if you like, some securing in terms of how we protect our environment, particularly from the standpoint of foreign direct investment, FDI. All right, so if you look at the evolution that has happened, all right, with regards to the CBN, with regards to FX dynamics, with regards to foreign direct investment, it started from around that time. Because see, it's a no-brainer. People don't go to where they are not safe, even in families. When you need to go spend vacation with an uncle or an auntie of yours, your parents want to ensure that it is an uncle of yours in whose hands you're safe. They want to look at your cousins there. Are they very violent, right? Are they very wild? Are you safe with them? Can you play safely with them? Your parents want to look at that. Sometimes your dad doesn't have a problem with it, but your mom raises concerns, and those concerns for the most part are valid and legitimate. So that's even within a small unit of family. So it has to do with investment. People are even 100 times, maybe 1,000 times more careful. But Queen, I'm also concerned about the sincerity of purpose that the president and the FCT minister in particular are bringing, because just yesterday, the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, also said that, look, we will make Abuja hot for you. That's him talking to not just the kidnappers, but everyone who has a criminal motive or criminal tendency in this city. Some people say, well, you can trust him. After all, he also had very serious insecurity issues in Rivers State when he was governor for 8 years, and he dealt with those issues. So what have you been thinking about from that standpoint of leadership? Not just, of course, we know the security agencies also are they're very key in this conversation, right? Yes. What have been your thoughts around what the leadership should be doing, whether FCT leadership or the president himself, right?
Oh, okay. I like the fact that Wike has said that, at least it's assuring that, Abuja is going to be really very hot for the kidnappers. And I really hope that, he backs these statements with action, with actions, because we see all over the media now that people are talking and security agencies are assuring us that, you know, but I want to see it come to play. I want to see that, you know, these talks are backed with actions. Obviously, I saw, and yes, I must commend the military because obviously they're swinging into action. I saw where they were, you know, showcasing, that should be the Nigerian Air Force, a sort of equipment, an equipment that's sort of like a drone and an airplane that is supposed to be maybe an undercover, a covert machine to discover hideouts of these kidnappers. So I want to see, I like that everybody's, you know, buckled up, and I want to see this, you know, come to life.
Yeah, I remember clearly on the day the ministers were inaugurated, of course, FCT Minister Nyesom Wike had returned to the Secretariat to address the press. And one of the things he did say was that insecurity will not be tolerated, that it will be dealt with to its roots. And he did talk about some of the issues that even some of us get to overlook. He said, the woman selling bolly, that's a smoked plantain by the roadside, the lady selling recharged card by the roadside, that's some criminal elements can take advantage of their presence to perpetrate crimes. You know, they can make calls from there, they can gather from there, they can gather intel and things like that from there. And then I remember very clearly, even though some of those statements are unprintable, all right, what he had said basically to the Commissioner of Police who was there, the Commandant of the FCT for the NSCDC who was also there. In fact, he told them, he said, look, after this after this press conference, we're going into a closed-door meeting where we have to discuss security issues. So now the ball is in front of the minister because the buck stops with him as far as this very particular issue is concerned. Queen, I understand we have papers ready, so let's take a break now. When we return, we'll bring you big headlines from across our national dailies. Do stay with us, everyone. Let's begin a newspaper for you this morning. The Vanguard is quite big on stories. All right, we're going to take a look at the Vanguard quickly. The big story there, very scary, again, troubling. Kidnapping will make Abuja too hot for criminals. Wike, that's the FCT minister, they're talking with two riders. The first says, enough is enough. Slams informants, you won't sleep well again. All right, that's Nyesom Wike they're talking. But above the nameplates, what do we have? Says Edo 2024, Ighodalo declares shuts down Benin. All right, that's part of the conversation we're having on the show this morning. Buhari defends Emefiele on Naira redesign, FX backlog, CBN uncovers abuses, vows sanctions. All right, these are all stories from today's Vanguard newspaper. All right, let's take the next one, which Queen has Tribune. Queen has Tribune for us this morning.
Okay, the big story for the Tribune, on the front page of the Tribune, is victims recount ordeal, 58 houses damaged, foreigners listed as owners of mining company. That's as regards the fire outbreak, the explosion in Ibadan. And then just before the nameplates of the news, NERC approves electricity tariff increase for DISCOs, retains subsidy. And then we have Kiari, fuel subsidy removal has eliminated cross-border smuggling of oil products. And then CBN unearths FX transaction abuses in clearing liabilities backlog. Underneath, as regards the big story, we see there that 3 dead, 60 out of 77 injured, discharged. Perpetrators must be fished out. Tinubu CAC certificate of mining company indicted for the explosion shows some foreign names. Makinde, FEC raises committee to review laws on explosives. Those living within 250 meters of incident to temporarily relocate as government conducts integrity test on buildings. Emergency Situation Room Act up. Okay, maybe we'll come back to this story because I want us to. And then underneath the big story, we have NLT raises concerns over plans to relocate key CBN debts to Lagos. And then we have the Edo 2024, Igodalo formally declares for governor. Then Jimoh Ibrahim canvasses world leaders' support for Tinubu economic policies. Quite a lot of stories. Kidnapping on Vanguard. It says FEC warns against crowdfunding to pay ransom. Okay, this is F. Then blames FCT insecurity on fleeting bandits from N-West, Northwest and North Central. I think that's all for the Tribune newspaper.
All right, so it's time we turn to The Guardian. Everyone, let's see what The Guardian has got for us this morning. Okay, we'll begin with the big story. Outrage as Ibadan explosion exposes illegal mining, weak regulations. You can find all of those details on page 6 of today's issue of The Guardian newspaper. 36 oil firms record $425 billion windfall in 24 months, says reports. Agbakoba tasks Tinubu on new constitution. We're back to this conversation again. Well, that story has its details on page 3 of today's Guardian newspaper. All right. Underneath the big story, it says families of abducted persons appeal to Tinubu Makinde over 100 million naira ransom. Crowdfunding, payment of ransom will worsen kidnapping, FG warns Nigerians. What are Nigerians supposed to do? I think this is...
such a dilemma.
So, yes, it's a dilemma, no doubt about that, but it's also double standard. I mean, we've also seen people in governments whose loved ones were kidnapped and they paid ransom. The same people come to Federal Executive Council meeting or own state executive council meeting and they are saying don't pay ransom. So it's double standard and it's a hypocrisy. It is what it is now. People are first human beings. Nationals of the country, right? So somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's parents, all right? Somebody's benefactor, for example, they may not even be related to you, all right, has been kidnapped, and you tell them don't pay ransom.
Don't pay ransom.
All right?
It's easier said until it hits.
Exactly. We have seen governors who paid ransom in this country, so we don't even want to go that path this morning. But the same governors come and tell you, we don't pay ransom, we don't negotiate with kidnappers and all that. So until we tell ourselves the whole truth, the better for us. Of course, ideally, you have no business paying ransom because government must take full responsibility, full being the operative word, for protection of lives and property. But where government fails in that regard, because government has failed in that regard continually. So Nigeria should be getting two things now. Apology that comes from the heart, and then remarkable, measurable efforts being made to secure the lives of Nigerians. Of course, there's no government that can secure lives 100%. People will die, disease, and so on and so forth. But when you now have a situation, I mean, where the reality becomes such that kidnappers and all kinds of criminals can come into the nation's capital and just pick people at random like they're picking birds. I mean, it's crazy. I grew up, for example, in an environment where birds are raised. So somebody buys 600 birds. I'm talking about chicks now, right? So they are raising them to say, okay, in the next 16 weeks, which is 4 months, we'll sell them for Christmas, or we'll sell them for Easter, or we'll sell them, whatever it is, or we'll supply them to food, quick service restaurants. And then flu comes and kills maybe 200 of them. What does the man do? He quickly finds out how did the flu get in here. He deals with that. And then he separates the surviving birds from those that had died. What is he doing? He's taking responsibility. He's mitigating the damage, and he's trying to protect whatever is left of his investment. So he has learned a lesson. Going forward, he knows what to do, yes, to cut to his barest this kind of incidents and the impact of it.
The question I'll pose now is, have we learned? The issue of insecurity has been ongoing for years. for as far back as 2012.
2010, basically, with the Christmas Day bombing in Madala.
Exactly. So we've had cases, but have we learned what kind of leadership are we, involved in? What kind of leaders do we have? What kind of structures do we have that people? It's for children, school children, young girls, obviously teenagers, to have been kidnapped. That should have been enough reason for us to take proactive measures to ensure that such occurrence never repeats itself, never comes to play again. But after that, we've had several cases of school children, of adults, families being kidnapped and, asking for ransom. So have we taken that measure? Is it not wise? Is it not sensible? Have we been sensible enough? Have our leaders been proactive enough to say that we need to look into this? We need to now begin to think of how did this happen? What can we do to ensure that there's never a reoccurrence? And how do we make sure that, these perpetrators are brought to book? Most times we hear that most of these Boko Haram are, when they surrender, they are now, taken for rehabilitation. And that is, so it makes who are involved in criminal cases now feel like, okay, the worst that will happen to us is when we're done with this, or they just think, what is our justice system like? They just believe and they just think that, whatever happens, they will find a way, they'll get away. That is because they have not seen, those who have been perpetrators being punished as it should be. So that is why, and then obviously the ransom that is being paid, they see how involved, the government is. They see their indulgence in negotiating with some of them, and they feel that, this can go on. Because after the ransom was paid for, especially that family of 5 girls, the Nabiha family, we now even begin to hear more cases of kidnappings. You see that when they brought that, obviously, I'm not saying that, obviously, because it's family. If I had a loved one that was kidnapped, I know I'll be running helter-skelter, to ensure that that loved one, it's agonizing to hear your loved one, speak from such pain, such level of pain. So I would run helter-skelter. But as a government official, would I now begin to come out publicly to say that, we're negotiating with these kidnappers to ensure the release of this family? No, it's encouraging for the perpetrators. So I wish and I pray, that's why I'm emphasizing that it's not, we're tired. We're honestly tired, and this is heartfelt. We're tired of hearing that measures are put in place, We want to see that there's never a reoccurrence, especially in the FCT. I can remember a few days, that's to tell you how unsafe it is. I was leaving the office really very late, and then I entered a cab. And because I was the only female in that cab, it was not so late, but I was just, beginning to imagine how, because I've heard cases of several people that got in a cab and, they were robbed at gunpoint and all of that. And, I was just beginning to imagine. It was really, really, really very agonizing.
I can imagine. I'm even wondering now, Queen, off the top of my head, how do people sleep? I mean, when they hear stories of how that their loved ones have been kidnapped, how do you even find sleep in the first instance?
Exactly.
What kind of dreams do you have?
Yes. So especially when you know that, not even finding out that your loved ones are kidnapped, for people in general, especially in those areas, because most times you don't even have to go anywhere before you're being kidnapped. This family were kidnapped in their houses. Most of the people kidnapped were kidnapped in their houses. That is tell you how bad it has become. Because how do you sleep? Now, before I go to how the families of the loved ones sleep, I want to talk about how people who now stay, in fact, in the FCT, because everywhere you go, you enter a taxi or you're talking with people, they're talking about the rates of kidnapping. So you see that it's become a problem. It's become a problem for everybody, residents of the FCT. Now, imagine me who have not had a loved one that is kidnapped, and I don't pray that I do, or have a colleague that is kidnapped. I am very worried because I am a resident of the FCT and I leave my house every day. I most time use public transport and I most time leave late. So you can imagine the fear. I can't even begin how terrifying it is every time I have to stand at a bus stop, trying to discern, should I get into this, it's a whole lot of mental work, I must tell you. And every time I sit down in that vehicle, I'm like, oh, you have to say your prayers and all that, and they made me look, you know, you have to be extra careful. Then talk more of having to be in your house. How safe is it? And then somebody comes and then they just carry you from sleep. Now, for the families of the victims, I am not sure that they've been able to sleep or they're able to sleep. We see the case of Nabiha's uncle, you know, rallying, and the families, how they tweet, how they're begging, how they're pleading on the government. They're pleading. Obviously, if you have a loved one, you do anything to ensure that. And it's sad that they had to. If they had, I'm sure, if this family had the amount these kidnappers were calling for, they would not be staying where they were staying. They probably would enforce more, you know, security measures and all that, so that they would be safe.
And moved to a more relatively secure part of the city.
And then this is the city. And then we hear of cases where people are leaving the country and moving. They're the japa, as they say. So you begin to wonder, and then you tell people not to leave, no matter how much you have, no matter how wealthy you are. Insecurity is a major cause for people to leave. I don't blame people that, you know, with all of the investment your business is doing well, you begin to wonder, why do you see a need to travel? This is one of the cases. Why shouldn't I leave the country if my life and my investments, look at it, take for example the explosion that happened in Ibadan. Right. You know, Nigeria just happens to people. Despite, you know, the measures, how safe can we be? How we cannot overemphasize, you know, this happening, and I just pray. Yes,
you know, there's a part of it that really gives me a lot of concern, which is the fact that it got so bad with this Nabiha family. I mean, these young girls that people on the social media, particularly X, even now opted to say we're going to raise the ransom, right? So that's not the conversation we should be having, ideally. But this is a humanitarian case, apparently, right? So government must show will. Government must show courage, government must show leadership, government must show sincerity of purpose. Otherwise, what we're doing the whole time is we're just playing politics with everything. Because if this had happened in the build-up to the 2023 general election, I'm not sure it will even get this much attention from government, because everybody wants to either win the election and get into office, or they want to win a second term or somehow secure their place in government, whether they are elected or appointed. But we are saying that government must prioritize security. We must see the investments made in security. And all of those who also compromise the process. Because we've seen cases, we've heard about several cases where there had been credible intel to say, look, we have these people perpetrating this kind of crimes in several places, and we need to go pick them up. And the next thing you know is someone from the inside, maybe what in defense parlance they call fifth columnist, will reach out to those people and say, look, there's a plan to come get you. And just before they get rounded up, they've taken flights, all right, because there is somebody compromising credible intel on the inside. So such persons should be exposed, and they should be brought to justice by all means for all to see. There's a case of, in fact, several cases of those who had been arrested in relation to kidnapping, banditry, insurgency, and so on and so forth. We hear over 400 of them. These were cases that started while we had former President Buhari in office. Of course, we had former Attorney General and Minister of Justice talking about, I mean, his name is off the top of my head already. But what I'm saying with all of these is that, I mean, Abubakar Malami, I should say, is that this case started since then. Yes, I know it's sensitive, so it's not something you just want to put on the front pages of newspaper. But Nigerians want to be assured and reassured that government is sincere about what it does. If you lie to people first, second, third, fourth times, by the time you're telling them the truth the fifth time, you don't blame them for not buying it. Because what you've shown to them is you can't be trusted. You've done that the first, second, third, and fourth time, for example. Now, the fifth time, you realize that you've been getting off on the wrong foot. So you want to tell them the truth. And you say, look, I'm telling you this from my heart. They are not buying it because you had 4 chances at 4 different times to tell them the truth. You decided to tell them a lie. So these are things government must look at. Government must be sincere from the standpoint of saying, we either have not done anything at all, or we have not done enough. We've done far from enough. Therefore, going forward, we want to do all it takes, and we will be transparent and sincere about this going forward. So much to be talked about, no doubt about it. But again, it says, without insecurity, we have no business in government, says Wike. That's from The Guardian, which is the truth. I mean, what would you be doing in government as a governor, as a minister, especially of the FCT? President, who is said to be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, if you cannot secure lives, if you cannot protect lives and property of Nigerians, those you're supposed to be providing leadership for. All right, Nigeria may borrow more to sustain discos, GENCOs as NEC adjusts tariff. All right, that's an interesting conversation because now it's talking about the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission and the possibility of having to borrow more to sustain distribution companies and as well as the generation companies because the NERC is adjusting tariff. So it will not be surprising if anytime soon we hear that there's an upward review in electricity tariff, all right? Let's see here. Okay, we've seen that before, but I think there's something else we need to see. It has to do with business. It says Naira falls to 1,320 Naira to the dollar amid uncertainty over MPC status. I think that's an all-time high for us as a country. Just to mention that you catch Queen Agaba at 11 o'clock this morning, Nigerian time, on Business Point, where she'll be talking about inflation numbers, all right, and the exodus, as we now know it, of multinational companies from Nigeria. So let's take the next paper, Daily Trust. I think that's what it is, and Queen has Daily Trust for us this morning.
Okay, and on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper, the big story there is security agency infiltrated by fifth columnist, Plateau governor. Sabotage response to distress calls. Many have no legitimacy to remain in service. We'll study the allegations. This is coming from the military. And then underneath the big story there we have how illegal miners explosives wreaked havoc in Ibadan. And then we have residents flee 10 Zamfara communities after bandits' threats. Okay, so I think that's all. That's on the front page of Daily Trust. Right. Still on insecurity, that residents have to flee, flee 10 Zamfara communities after bandits, threatened them. So 10 communities. Imagine residents of 10 communities fleeing those communities after threats from bandits. It's appalling. It's appalling, I must tell you. What now becomes of these places that are possibly now become maybe
desolate
or hideouts for
the kidnappers and the bandits
them
themselves,
acquiring territories for themselves,
and even planting their flags in some cases, right? So it means we have more work to do. But then, on our part, we're turning to the Nation. The Nation newspaper is our next port of call. We're looking at headlines above the nameplate. First is the one that has a picture of the CBN governor, Olayemi Kaidoso, right? What does it say? It reads, CBN to crack down on forex violators. Hopefully this crackdown will yield more results, will be different from the other ones we've heard of in recent past. And then what else? Next hike in electricity tariff. Okay, the Nigerians will have a big conversation in front of them real soon. Jimo Ibrahim rallies supports in Davos for Tinubu's policies. Edo Paul Ighodalo joins race as LP pegs form at 30 million naira. All right, it's becoming more competitive. Ibadan explosions, 3 dead, 77 injured, 58 houses damaged. All right, that's how bad it gets with illegal miners who have in their possession dynamite. All right, how explosives boomed by residents. All right, FEC OK's review of laws on explosives. Akintola Oladoku Olajide lose buildings. Police tightened security in Lagos. Crowdfunding for ransom payments will worsen kidnapping, says federal government. IG raises squad. FCT will be hot for criminals, says Wiki. But again, I'm just thinking now, Queen, this should also be a one-off effort. We always have these words, some people will refer to as some sort of youthful exuberance, right? So there's a situation, and then we put in all we've got. And then once that standalone instance, as it were, that singular incident is taken care of, everybody goes to sleep until when there's something worse. All right, everybody comes back and says, why did we miss it? Why did we go to sleep? So the question is, even after we've dealt with all of this, what to do, move on to ensure that we put in place the right guards, the right safeguards to ensure that this doesn't happen again or has a minimal chance of happening again is very important. But let's look at the last headline here, just at the foot of the front page. All right, what it says, Obi of Onitsha tackles Soludo for suspending monarchs. That's on page 8 of today's Nation newspaper. So you've got to take a look at that, right? Find details for yourself, page 8 of today's Nation newspaper. Let's take a look at last paper this morning, and Queen has that paper for us.
So last paper this morning is the leadership. And the big story there is doubt trails January student loan takeoff. Underneath it, we have student body says no portal open for applications, urges President Tinubu to act before month end. Government plans still intact, FG declares. Above the big story, just on top of the nameplate, we have 9,734 persons killed, 4,067 others abducted in 2023. Reports from the security agencies, the police. Then by elections, we have INEC releases final list of candidates. INEC released final list of candidates. Then we have electricity subsidy rises to 1.6 trillion as discos tariffs. Then we also have AFCON Super Eagles battle Cote d'Ivoire Elephants, okay? And then we have illegal foreign miners behind Ibadan explosion. This is coming from Makinde. And then we have World Bank pushes states to access idle $329.52 million. Lastly, on the leadership, we have King Charles to undergo treatment for England prostrate. That's all we have for the leadership. And then you ask the question, what measure do we take for moving forward as regards, you know, as you put it, the youthful exuberance when there's a situation like this. You know, this has always been my concern. I hope this is not another case of reassurance and trying to bring succor to people who have been victims of kidnappings. I hope that moving forward, we would see actions backed with this. And what we can do, because we can only plead with relevant authorities at this point in time, and we obviously cannot go and be at their at command, you know, we can only plead as citizens and as residents of the FCT. We can only plead. And what we can do is, I like that we're talking about this, but let's not stop talking about it. As the case is, there's just this fuse, the initial fuse where people just talk about what's happening, or they talk, they air their views, and then they go to sleep. Can we begin to hold them accountable and plead and ensure that, can we do follow-ups? What the situation reports, what's going on, what are the security agencies doing? Let us know that they are putting in measurable efforts to ensure that there's never a repeat. So we can only stay on this matter and not just move on to the next big story or move on to the next trending story. Yes.
All right, we have just our last paper here, and it has to do with stories from the Business Day newspaper this morning. All right, it says IOC's exits deals to test Tinubu's investment drive. IOC's exits deals to test Tinubu's investment drive is a big story. All right, Nigeria among top destinations for greenfield projects, pledges in Africa. Nigeria eyes Eurobond issuance, $1.5 billion from World Bank. What's more, FG orders probe into Ibadan explosion. Tinubu commiserates with victims. And lastly, Dangote Cement displaces Airtel as most valuable firm. We understand that Dangote Sugar has hit the $1 trillion dollar threshold, which is a lot of money, right? So basically that's something that makes the news, all right? Incidentally, that's what we're leaving it with the papers, everyone. Thank you for being a part of it, but my colleague Anthony and I will be here shortly to take a look at a few more big stories. Queen, thank you, by the way, for coming to join.
Many thanks. It's always a pleasure having you to talk about it.
Let's bring you some sort of summary of big sporting news.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Sports News Update. Let's begin with the big story that Jordan Henderson has terminated his contract with Saudi Arabian club Al Attifaq and has flown back to England to complete negotiations over a shock move to Ajax. Mail Sport has learned that a termination agreement was made with Al Attifaq on Tuesday with the England midfield player due in Amsterdam for a medical this weekend. Henderson is set to join Ajax on a free transfer, but the move will cost him millions in tax after he chose to walk away from a 3-year contract with Al Attifaq. After just 6 months, the Saudi club are understood to have reluctantly agreed to let Henderson leave during negotiations at the club's winter training camp in Abu Dhabi on Tuesday, with the 33-year-old securing a crucial concession that they would not demand a fee. Henderson has represented himself during the negotiation and is expected to conclude a deal with Ajax in the next few days. An agreement has yet to be reached on the length of his contract, but that is not thought to be a sticking point. And moving to the La Liga, Xavi is reportedly fighting to keep the confidence of multiple first-team players at Barcelona. Barcelona are fourth in La Liga, 8 points off the pace setters Girona, and their latest blow came in a 4-1 battering by Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup final. Some stars are losing faith in him and are annoyed that he said they could not adapt to Barca's play style, according to ESPN sources. One source told ESPN that some players feel he has not been as tough of squad members, but not all players hold the same view. Barca won the La Liga title at the center last season, but have been hamstrung by their financial fair play situation and struggled to register players at the start of the season. In yet more of fever, they are playing at Spain's Olympic Stadium this season as the new camp undergoes a £1.25 billion rebuild, and they have struggled to draw their regular crowd. And talking tennis, Novak Djokovic reached the third round of the Australian Open after a tense victory over Australian Alexis Popyrin in 4 sets. The Serbian world number 1 won 6-3, 4-6, 7-6, 6-3 following a grueling clash in Melbourne that finished at around midnight local time. Djokovic, who has won the Australian Open on his previous 4 attempts, raced into an early lead as he won the first set 6-3. However, Popyrin, ranked 43 in the world, fought back and took the second set 6-4. The Australian, who was being cheered on by a supportive local crowd in the Rod Laver Arena, then had 4 set points in the third set before he ultimately lost 7-4 on a tie break. And wrapping it up, talking boxing, the worst kept secret in boxing was officially confirmed on Monday with the news that Anthony Joshua will be facing Francis Ngannou in a huge crossover clash in Saudi Arabia on March 8. His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh did manage to spring a surprise door when he announced his intention to put together later this year in the Middle East that would pit 5 matchroom fighters against 5 Queensberry opponents. Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren did not need much convincing, shaking hands on the proposal on stage, suggesting it is all systems go for the mega event to take place. Warren is very confident that his boxers will come out on top and told Mail Sport that he would be willing to place a £1 million bet with Hearn on the overall outcome of the night. Now it's about putting the show together. Mail Sport has looked at 5 events, many of which could be main events on their own that could land on the dream card in 2024. And that's how we call it a wrap on the Sports News Update. I am Anthony Momodu.
Thank you, Anthony. Incidentally, Anthony is in the live studio this morning, having brought us that roundup of sports. Anthony Momodu, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. So that was sports we're talking there, but let's talk a bit of other issues, social, political, for example. Insecurity has assumed a more drastic dimension across the country, Abuja being a hotbed of some sort right now. And Wike, Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, has threatened fire and brimstone, telling the people behind this criminal enterprise that, look, this city will be too hot for you. We understand as of this morning, there has been a massive deployment of policemen across the city. What have been your thoughts? I mean, especially from those you've been talking with.
Well, I think we want to see action, want to see the spate of kidnappings and killings come to true end, and we want it to be consistent. Yes, we've heard them talk tough, but not just talking tough. We want action right now. Already, most times when you hear the government say this, what you see is what you just mentioned, deployment of security men in the city center. But we don't want this deployment to be in the city centers. We want it to be at the area councils where these crimes, especially those routes where they come in and out of the FCT.
The fringes.
The fringes, where they have access to the bushes, where they take their victims. So rather than populate the city center where the criminals don't really dwell, because if you situate them in the city center where we see them, they harass innocent citizens, then that's not getting the job done. We want them to be at those Buhari area councils, Kwali, those areas where we know that the crime, they can easily get away when they get their victims. Then also another issue is this special intervention squad. We're very wary about how it's going to turn out. We remember what happened when the SARS squad was also formed. At a point, they lost focus. They started, instead of the citizens they were supposed to defend, were the citizens they turned against. So the issue is what are the guidelines for this special squad? Are they going to have something different to make them be more guided? We have body cameras on them so that whatever actions they are taking, we can tell.
Can be monitored and tracked real time.
So that we see that they are not harassing the innocent citizens. And even if they have to shoot to kill, that body camera would be able to see the conversation that went through, if they were right before they decided to pull the trigger. And then what kind of stop and search are they allowed to do? Should citizens show their ID card, or what can citizens do to give them that leverage to let them pass by? Then if they are to make arrest, where do they take them to? We know there's this notorious dungeon somewhere they call SARS office, where you are told that once you get into that dungeon, you're as good as dead. They should have specific places where they will take whoever suspects they have. Because we know something about Nigerian police, we've seen in the past, where they arrest innocent citizens just in the bid to have people paraded to say, okay, we're doing the job, these are the latest criminals we've caught. And we want to be sure that these are truly criminals and not just innocent Nigerians who probably they were caught in a bad area and decided to use them as scapegoats. So there are lots of things we want to see. We want to see NICOM-SATs. Nigerians were told that the reason why Nigeria spends millions or billions for NICOM-SAT, putting it up in the orbit, was because they want to be able to track movements of criminals across board. So is the NICOM-SAT not working? Why are we not tracking the calls from these people seeking, calling for ransom? They make calls, so why can't we track those calls?
Even if they were using satellite phones?
We should be able to track it. Then these monies that are being given to them, it doesn't just suspend in the air, they are put in bags or somewhere. What happens to forensic devices like chips that could be put in the bag so that when these monies are carried, we can track where those monies are going to? They have people, accounts that these monies are paid. What are the banks doing to help us, get through to this person? So we remember Sheikh Gobi in Kaduna, the Islamic cleric who had the effrontery, or I don't know how he does it, but he's able to liaise with these people in the forest. Why can't we send him on this errand, since he's good with them, and get more information and round them up, rather than every time special squad? Then there's this issue of this special squad, how they're going to be funded. Because we know the Nigerian police, if you ask them for to get their job done, they tell there's no fear, there's always one excuse. Who's going to fund them? How soon are they going to fund them? What's the time frame for this special squad? Are they going to be here for 6 months, 1 year?
Deal with these singular incidents and then they're back to their shells.
So these are some of the, and where do they get this special squad? Is it just going to be the Nigerian police force making up this special squad, or it's going to be a coalition of all security agencies in order not to just get the bad eggs in the police force? Are they going to use those who have participated in former SARS group, or they're going to get fresh eggs, new entries into the Nigerian police force to carry out this special assignment? Those are very key questions the Inspector General of Police has to answer. And he doesn't have to do it in a hurry.
Right.
Just because the president has a special squad, you just bring those who have done these dirty jobs before, because they already know the in and outs. So we need fresh minds, fresh people, and who's going to lead this team? Remember the last leader of the group, Abakari, the Super Cup.
Yes.
At the end, he used the whole squad for his own benefit, and at the end of the day, we know where that took us to.
So that was the IG special squad.
So we have to be very sensitive of all this. Then, is there a feedback mechanism where the populace, the residents of the FCT, can report back to the IG to say, okay, we see your squad, this is what we saw them doing today. We think they're stepping out of line. We think they're not going by the guidelines or their mandate. There should be a feedback mechanism that will reach the IG straight and not through any other means, so that he can be accountable to the Nigerian people, to the president, and to his the squad he's trying to set up.
You know, it's interesting how that we're now hearing that there are several fifth columnists inside of the military, inside of the police. You know, of course, by fifth columnists, just for the benefit of our viewers, these are people who compromise intel, compromise strategies, all right, by security agencies to be able to run circles around these problems. I mean, round up these criminals. How do we also deal with that? Because it's like putting money in pockets.
You know, that was why I asked the question, which members are going to make up this new special squad? Because if you're going to use the old hands, then it's as good as we're already failing, because these people already know the tricks.
Right.
And they're going to infiltrate the new. And so we better get fresh people from the academies. We know we have the police college, we have the NIPS in Jos. We have those who do not necessarily wear the uniforms, those who have not interacted with the general police force. Probably pick them from different states.
How do we deflate their strategies? Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, so using such very intelligent young men who do not believe in muscles or shooting of the guns, we use their intellect to be able to round up this criminals. So I think it's going to be very, for the period they're going to be fighting these criminals, so that they don't get infiltrated, they don't get compromised in any way. So I'm going to be in a camp, so that we monitor them in the camp, who they call, who they talk to, as a way of safeguarding them and also ensuring that they achieve the aim, which is to safeguard the FCT and the country at large.
I mean, nothing more to add to that, because it is what it is now. We must take full responsibility for how we protect and safeguard. But there's a second issue here, the issue, Tony, around the court judgments now barring the National Broadcasting Commission, that is the NBC, from fining media houses for any kind of infraction. Justice Ofeli Ajimogobia says the NBC is not a court of law, and as such she'll play its role of being an administrative and a regulatory agency rather than adjudicating in cases of cases that are purely legal.
I think they're probably judgment. I think that it was a landmark judgment, and I think it's just precise. That line alone seals the deal. The fact that the NBC is not a judicial arm or a body, so does not have that right. And also the media rights agenda, who is standing for the media houses,
right.
Article 7 of the African Charter. It's not natural justice for you to be the lawyer, the judge, and everything of your own case, because the NBC, they set these codes. They are still the ones going to decide who has violated the codes. And so it means that is not a natural justice to follow. And that's a very strong case put forward by the MRA. The whole, it's a very straightforward case. But the truth is, I think we have to give kudos to the MRA for having that boldness to challenge the NBC, because before now, I think media houses were not bold enough to challenge the NBC, because this is out. When you see the judgment, you see it's truly out of order for the NBC to have the right to decide to fine media houses, because indirectly what it means that you're telling them not to report the truth, not to say the truth, and just to sweep it under to sweep the truth under the carpet. So what's the use of the media if they can't speak the truth to to power,
in ways that are responsible,
and also inform Nigerians on what is truly happening. And it's because it means Nigerians are going to lose faith in the media, and the mandate of the media is to speak the truth, to be balanced in whatever reportage they're giving. So if you ask them not to do that, then indirectly you're saying they should infringe the Freedom of Information bill also, which gives them that right. And also saying Nigerians do not have the right to know the truth.
It's ironic because you just mentioned the FOI Act now, which is very fundamental to this conversation, Anthony, because as a media house, for example, we have the rights. I mean, we are empowered under the FOI Act to say, for instance, want to know what the budget is for health this year, maybe middle of the year, want to know what has been spent, what specifically it has been spent on. And then we get that information ultimately, and then we decide to use it for maybe a special report of some kind or some sort of extensive work by way of maybe a documentary with all the facts there, verifiable and authentic, and then the embassy says, no, you went overboard for using this information, even though it was given to you, for example, by maybe the Ministry of Finance, or as the case may be, maybe Ministry of Health in particular, and you get fined 5 million. Because when you look at the NPC code, quite voluminous, and you realize that there's a range of fines depending on what infraction you are said to have committed. But again, as they say in law, I don't know how to say that in Latin, by the way, they say you can't be a judge in your own cause. All right, so for the NBC, I think the lesson here is to go back, be humble enough and say, where did we miss it? Let's take a second look at how we operate, our modus operandi, as they call it. And then for the media houses, they also have a responsibility to be fair to all parties. Because even though we may not have taken any oath, we have a responsibility to be fair to all parties, even though we may not be comfortable with some entities.
I think the media houses have been fair, because if you look at the issue that led to these fines...
The report on banditry.
In
Zamfara in particular.
I think it was very sincere. If you remember your guest on the program that talked about mining, he mentioned how Zamfara actually had lots of ex-military men who were perpetrating illegal mining, but the state government not speaking out. It still goes to say the fact that media houses like Trust TV and others who were fined had the boldness to do that documentary should be given, commendation, because they did that for national interest. Because with that, it was going to be easy for the Nigerian army and security formations to be able to tackle the insurgents. So you say wrong. I think persons like the former Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, such a person should be sued. Such a person should be brought before, should apologize to Nigerians for taking that stand and trying to bully the media houses, because what he did was not of national interest, but for selfish interest. Because if you say that should not fly, then you're indirectly saying, I'm supporting banditry and insurgency against my people.
And that's an issue of a national security proportion.
Yes.
Anthony, I'll say a big thank you to you for coming to do this with us. Don't forget to join Anthony at 10 o'clock Nigerian time this morning as he brings you Talk Sports, so you can follow him for all of the scintillating sports stories across board. It turns out that's our program for you this morning. Don't forget that this is Global Television, and keep it here. I'm Oyag Mofwebe. Have a great day ahead of you.